and welcome. I'm Terry Lifton, President of Dynamic Workforce Solutions, and I'm your host for this episode of Dynamic Words, a brand new series brought to you by Dynamic Works Institute. We've all been inspired by countless dynamic individuals we've encountered. Dynamic Words is our way of bringing these incredible voices to the forefront. This podcast is more than just a series. It's a platform for thought leaders, change makers, and innovators to share a little bit about themselves and their career path and their leadership style. And today I'm thrilled you've decided to join us. I'm also excited to introduce Cami Eakins. Cami is the CEO of Career Path Services. Her journey is a testament to the power of her word, generosity, today's dynamic word. And I can't wait for her to share her insights and experiences with us. So get ready to be inspired, challenged, and motivated as we uncover the power of words in leadership and in life. So Cami, welcome.
Thank you, Terry. It is so good to be here.
Thanks so much for taking the time out to participate in Dynamic Words. I'm excited to learn from you. I'm your student today. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Give me an overview of your career path and where you are today.
Sure. Well, the career path for me has been a long and windy road, as the song says. And it has been around leaning in and stepping up when opportunities presented themselves. So, a little bit about me: I grew up in a small town out in the country, rode horses for a short bit, and then we moved kind of closer into town. And I got my first job when I was 14 years old, working at a local drive-in, learning how to make ice cream cones, and I was extremely shy. But that opportunity actually helped me start to learn about how that it's okay to just be outgoing, I guess is the best way to put it, because those people didn't know me. I could just be nice and friendly. And that job led to other opportunities around caring and hospitality. So they kind of go hand in hand for me. And I'll get to how that links to generosity
Sure.
in just a second. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I was married when I was 19. I became a mom. I stayed at home with my kids. I needed to go back to work when my first two were young. I have four sons, four grown adult sons now. And I went to work at our church doing youth work. And that was great and rewarding and helped me support my family while at a time when I needed it. But there came a point in my career life that I needed to have retirement benefits, medical. I was a single mom now, still raising four boys, and trying to figure out how to make that work. The kicker to that was I do not have a college degree. I have a high school diploma. And as I started applying for jobs, I was running into roadblocks. But I came across an ad listing with Career Path Services to work with dropout youth. And I was like, well, I work with youth and I've done fundraising, so maybe this will be a good fit. I first didn't allow myself to apply because it said, preferred 4-year college degree. The ad in the newspaper, because this was 20 years ago, and that's where you found jobs, was in the newspaper, came back the next weekend. And I was like, well, if you don't apply, if you don't put yourself out there, you don't know what you don't know. And maybe that would be a turning point for me to go back to college. Well, they valued my work experience and they took a shot on me. And I started working with dropout youth. I moved into leadership roles, became the COO in 2007, and moved up here to Spokane, Washington, where I live now. And I loved being the COO. I love program development. I love, just making sure that we're able to implement our mission across the state, and that really we can make a difference in people's lives. All along the way, every single thing every career, every job I had, and as now the CEO, first woman CEO of Career Path Services, which is a nonprofit, I have served my coworkers through a commitment to generosity. So my grandma raised me to believe in hospitality. You make people comfortable, you stop what you're doing, you pay attention. And that's how I have led. It is through this spirit of generosity that I think is just really critical to our ability to meet our customers where they're at.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've had the absolute pleasure of seeing one of your operations and more importantly, seeing you in action with your people. And I think it tells a huge story about your generous spirit. How do you define generosity?
Well, it's actually one of our organization's value words. So we have 6 value words, and generosity is usually the one that I lean to first. And it's a willingness to give help or support more than is usual or expected. Additionally, extending the most generous interpretation to the intentions, words, and actions of others. The assumption of generosity is believing that people are doing the best that they can. And that's usually my starting point, is to assume good intentions and recognize, especially when working with customers. And now I relate this to the employees that we work with, but they came in, they showed up. And my job is to make sure that they're comfortable, that they know they're welcome, and that's the baseline for generosity. I also think that it's important to understand generous people share information readily, they share credit often, and give up their time and expertise easily. It comes across as strong work ethic, great communication skills, and a willingness and an ability to collaborate.
Yeah, fantastic. This notion of validating and giving value to every single person we come in contact with speaks to the generous spirit and the generous nature. I love that that's part of your 6 really foundational cornerstones of your business. That's amazing. So when you look back over your career, is there a time that you can pinpoint where someone was either incredibly generous to you, or you had an opportunity to show generosity just in your upbringing in the business? I'm curious if you can share a story about that with us.
I think that what I'll share is the first time I registered a young dropout youth. And I had been doing the work for about 3 months. And one of the people that trained me called me up and they're like, I'm looking at um, your accomplishments or your report, your programmatic report. You haven't registered anyone, Cami. You just need to say yes. So I was like, okay, next one that comes in, darn it, I am going to find a way and register them, because I was nervous. It was a performance-based contract, and
Mhm.
you wanted to have a really good one. And in came a young man named Gilbert, and he was a dropout. He was taking care of his brothers and sisters, so his mom could work. And I just really found a way to connect with him in some kind of special way. But it was around this idea of generosity. So I think that it became this openness and welcomeness, and creating an environment where Gilbert knew that he could trust me in how I was going to guide the work that we did. Now, he was with me almost the entire time I was a case manager. uh, because things were a little bit slower. But what I remembered most about him and why he stands out is several years later, I'd already moved up here to Spokane, and I went back to the office that I worked at, and he came in, and he and I had a minute to chat. And he just said, I really want to thank you for seeing my capabilities, what I was able to do. You were one of the very first people who I encountered that said, thank you, not thank you, but that saw the value in what I brought to the table as a human being. Now I'm paraphrasing, of course. He
Yeah.
said it a little bit differently, and he was still working on finding his way through to what was going to be best for him on his career pathway. But I just think that's where generosity plays in. It's the ability to, again, see the human in front of you, strip aside judgment, and just lean into creating an environment where you're learning and curious about who they are and what their needs are.
So now as a CEO,
Yeah.
I just think it's amazing that you started as a direct service person. I think that gives a perspective in a leadership role that is very unique. And so when you look at your toolkit, and if I was an aspiring leader that wanted to be the next CEO of Career Path Services or any corporation or nonprofit, really, for that matter, um, why would you say that you have to have generosity in your toolkit? What would your advice be as to why it's important? Because you're not doing direct services
Nope.
real technically. I'm certain when you walk in the door of your building, you are doing direct services, but to me, it's like really an important translation from now you're working with board members, staff, community leaders, spreadsheets, reports. Talk to me about why generosity is in your toolkit still.
Okay, well that's it's really a great way to or a great question. And I think that for me it starts with now I'm not doing direct service, but I am doing direct service to the people that come to work for me. So I start with a spirit of generosity, meaning I'm going to learn about the person when we're getting ready to hire, or I've created this environment so that my leaders know and understand that we are not just looking at a resume or the criteria that they've listed and their schooling and education. I want to have conversations. So we have a practice of interviewing almost everybody who applies for a job with us so that we can learn. Because had they not had that process in place in 2003 when I walked through the door, I would not be sitting here today. Right. They needed to get to know me. So I think that that's a key piece. As a leader, it is important for me, even today, as our organization is growing, that I have moments of connection to every employee in the organization. I value what they bring, I appreciate the work that they do, and I recognize that we would not be successful without them. So I attend every new employee orientation. I have a Calendly invite in my signature on my emails, and I invite every employee to just schedule a time with me if they just want to chat. And I have a lot of people that take me up on that, and they are consistently amazed, right? That I guess I don't see myself as a CEO. So I mean I do, but I don't. You know what I mean? I'm still just Cami. But I want to hear what their experience is with the organization, what their challenges are, how I can support the work they're doing. And I want to hear their ideas. And it has really led to richness in our abilities to connect. And that open door, which is really more of an open mind philosophy, goes all the way back to starting with generosity.
That's incredible. And um, there's not going to be a person listening that doesn't say, I'm going to do that. And I think that's fantastic, Cami. I've always been inspired by the way you present yourself. You're so professional and really accepting of all those I've seen you encounter. So this has been my classroom, as I told you from the beginning. I thought it'd be a classroom for all, but it's definitely become my classroom. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of Dynamic Words. It's been an absolute pleasure to explore the impactful story shared by Cami today. And thanks, Cami, for your time and insight. As we wrap up this conversation, we hope that you leave feeling inspired and empowered by the power of today's dynamic word, which was generosity. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with your friends and colleagues who might find it just as inspiring. And don't forget to subscribe to the series for more compelling discussions with outstanding leaders. And until next time, keep embracing the power of words. I'm Terry Lyston from Dynamic Works Institute, signing off from Dynamic Words and reminding you to stay dynamic and stay inspired.